Chapter 17. The city that summer overflowed with the hot and thirsty, panting on subway platform, battling the sun with wide hats and light clothes, rushing to scaffoldings for shade, dashing into a department store not for the sales advertised on windows, but for their AC. Those unable to escape to beaches and countrysides congregated in places where the humidity could briefly be forgotten. World music concerts with musicians from far-flung lands like Kazakhstan and Burkina Faso, rooftop liveries, where everyone seemed absolutely certain of their good looks and sophistication. Street fairs with too much grilled chicken and not enough moving air, sunset cruises with last-minute tickets, and mediocre cocktails. There was much to do in the city, and yet the desperation remained among many to be out of it, to be in a place where the mission was pleasure and not endurance, to see where the air moved without burden and the water went on for thousands of miles, a place like the villages of the Hamptons. John could take a paid vacation in the first 2 weeks of August. Clark informed him as they drove down Lexington on a mid-June morning. The family would be spending late July and pretty much all of the August in Southampton, Cindy and the boys mostly, as well as random days in early July, so it should be an overall light summer of work. I'm very grateful, sir, Jan said without a change in his countenance, though inwardly he was grinning wider than the great lift belly. It would be the first time in America he'd paid to do nothing. Though he knew he wasn't going to sit around idle for 2 weeks, he was going to call the livery cab company he used to work for and get shipped, so he could add to the funds and he and Danny were saving for his deportation case. You should ask Sandy if she needs a housekeeper for that last week in July. And the first 3 weeks in August, when Anna takes her vacation, Clark added minutes later, she usually gets someone from the agency. Maybe your wife would like to do it and make some extra money? Oh yes, sir, she would. We'll be very grateful, sir. Should get someone from the agency. Just 2 weeks housekeeper. Cindy did need someone, and Nanny needed a break from the oft gloomy task of feeding and bathing incapacitated senior citizens. Though it was the prospect of earning more money in 4 weeks than she made in 3 months that prompted her and Jen to discuss the offer for only 5 minutes before agreeing that she would skip the second summer semester, since her student visa allowed her to, and go to Southampton. She called Cindy Edward that evening after Jen had coached her on what not to say, how to say the right things well, introduced herself, and said she would like the job. Cindy offered her the job, though not before telling her what was involved: maintaining a spotless five-bedroom house, grocery shopping for specific items that must be gotten right, daily laundry, cooking specific recipes, serving guests in a dignified manner, babysitting a 10-year-old as needed, 12-hour workdays with lots of downtime. Always do it all very well, Madam, Nanny said, holding the phone tightly against her ear. I trust you will. Jan's a hard worker, and I imagine you are no different. Only, madam, it's just one more thing, she said. What's that? I'm 4 months pregnant, madam. It's not going to be a problem for me, but then it won't be for me either, Cindy said, ending the matter and then telling Nanny that in the last week of June and she would need to take the Long Island Railroad with Anna to the Hamptons so she could get acquainted with Cindy's needs and expectations. Make sure you only do what they say you do, and exactly the way they say you do it, Jan said to Nanny just before she descended the steps into the subway to travel to the Hamptons to begin her 4 week stint. No more, no less. Are you too, sir? She sat laughing. What do you think I'm going to do over there? It's not a laughing matter, Nanny. Just do your work well. That's all I'm saying. Don't do or say anything that doesn't concern you. These people are our bread and tea. Don't worry, she said, still laughing at his serious demeanor, which she found both cute and unnecessary. I won't disgrace you. It's not like I've never been around rich people, which was true. Her family used to be rich in the 18th and early 90s. Back then, her father was customs officer and at the seaport in Douala, and thanks to all the gratuities, not bribes, her father swore he never once got his palm greased. He and his colleague took from merchants bringing goods into the country. He was able to multiply his annual government salary by 10 and ensure that his family lacked no good things. They lived in a brick house and with tiled outer walls and floors and running water. They owned electrical appliances and a working telephone, and her father even owned a car, a dilapi- dilapidated blue 1970s Peugeot, but still a car, and thus a symbol of prosperity in Limp. They were the first family in their downbeat neighborhood to own a TV set. Nanny still remembered those early days of television and the late 80s when CRTV broadcasted only from 6 o'clock to 10 o'clock in the evening. By 5:45 every evening, the neighborhood children would be in their living room, sitting on the floor, waiting for tele to begin. When the TV statics, which the children called rice, slowly disappeared to reveal the Cameroonian flag, the children would giggle with delight, and the adults, packed on the sofa and chairs all round the living room, would tell them to be quiet. Television was on. No one was allowed to make noises when television was on. Children were supposed to watch the news in silence, while the adults discussed the atrocities in South Africa every time a picture of Nelson Mandela came up, wondering when those bad white people were going to set that good man free. Children were supposed to watch in silence. Documentaries in silence. Watch fast-talking cartoons, which they called parkour in silence. They had to be quiet during whatever British or French or an American series CRTV was broadcasting, soap operas and sitcom, which they barely understood, but nonetheless giggled at whatever kissing scenes came on and groaned wherever someone was punched. The only time children were allowed to talk was when a music video came on, then they were encouraged by the adult to stand up and dance to Nedi Iangyo or Shalom Nonga or tom yums, and every time they would stand up and bust out their best makosa moves, twirling tiny buttocks and moving clenched fists from right to left with all their might, smiling to no end. To be able to see their favorite musician singing in a black box, what a privilege. Nanny smiled at the memories as she sat in the train. She was a teenager back then, but as a middle child, she wasn't allowed to touch the TV. Turning it on and off were rights reserved for her father and oldest brother. Nowadays, even 3-year-olds in Lim could turn a TV on and off. Every third house in town has CNN, though funnily her parents' house didn't. Her father had stopped working at the seaport in '93, forced out by a Bamileke boss who wanted his tribesman to take Nanny's father's job. With no warning, he had been transferred to a far less lucrative position at the Treasury Department in Limbe, and 6 months after that, his widowed sister had died, leaving behind 3 children he had no choice but to take it and raise alongside his 5. With the loss of his prestigious job came the loss of some of the power and respect he had as a rich man. Folk still greeted him with both hands, but many stopped coming to his house to visit, knowing that upon leaving they wouldn't receive 5 or 10,000 CFA francs to pay taxi. These days he was retired, living on a meager pension, without much to his name besides an ancient blue Peugeot in the garage of his brick house.